Warhammer 40K Rogue Traitor, a CRPG set in an unforgiving galaxy of treachery, bloodshed, and malevolent gods. Developed by Owlcat Games, the same studio that brought us crunchy, choice-heavy epics like Pathfinder Kingmaker and Wrath of the Righteous. Except this time, instead of fighting goblins in a forest, you're cruising through space, commanding a giant ship, and making questionable choices that would have the God Emperor raise an eyebrow if he still had one. Welcome to a brand new game on this channel. I've actually wanted to play this game for quite some time, but I got kind of distracted with life and never really got the chance. Funnily enough, I was cleaning up some old emails recently, and I accidentally stumbled upon a 2-year-old message that I got from a community manager at Owlcat Games. I completely forgot that I asked them for a key to the beta test of this game all the way back in 2023, and my channel was really small during that time, so I honestly never expected any game studio to respond to my emails. I also think I got buried in my inbox when I was on vacation with my family during the summer, so I just never really noticed it until recently. I wrote an apology about 4 months ago, but nobody responded, so I guess this video is sort of like my YouTube apology to Owlcat Games for ghosting them for over 2 years. If an Owlcat employee is watching, I'm really sorry about that. My bad, guys. With all of that out of our way, let's get back to the 41st Millennium. We begin our journey in the humble character creator, where I have already prepared my custom portrait of what a true rogue trader should look like. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only Captain Crunch. A man of vision, a man of destiny, and a man I can trust with the lives of billions. Now it is time to craft his in-game avatar. I think Captain Crunch's hair is a bit of a mystery, but I decided to give him a short trim so that there won't be any pieces sticking through his hat, but with enough sideburn left over to see his pearlescent locks near his ears. For his homeworld, I went with Forge World because Captain Crunch is technically a brand under PepsiCo, and what is PepsiCo if not a manufacturing super complex that would gladly strip entire planets down to their cores, build mega factories in their place, and turn the population into a source of cheap labor. Also, fun fact, according to Wikipedia, Captain Crunch was one of the first cereals to use an oil coating to give flavor to its corn and oats, which naturally means my captain here is going to be an intelligence character, even if I have no idea what that actually means in this game. Next up, I gotta pick up an origin. I really wanted to try out Sanctioned Psyker because that means I get magical psionic powers, but the Navy officer just looks so handcrafted for a guy like Captain Crunch. It's got a big hat and a sharp blue coat, so this was my only real choice. For the triumph, I went with Illustrious Glory because commerce is what being a cereal mascot is all about. It's not about spreading the Emperor's light, it's about spreading brand awareness. For the archetype, I realized that only the operator seemed to scale with intelligence here, so that easily became my pick. Lastly, but not least, it is time to name the mighty vessel that will carry me across the Milky Way. And there is only one name that fits the bill. Captain Crunch's flagship will be the Quaker Oats. A name feared by demons, respected by the Imperium, and fortified with essential vitamins and minerals.
That's good!
We spawn into the game aboard the Quaker Oats, and Captain Crunch's panoramic shot is interrupted by a man named Kunrad. He's quite the pompous fellow, but he's also good at bowing his head, so I continue to engage in conversation. Kunrad tells me that I'm actually not the rogue trader yet, and there is someone else who has all the power on the ship. But luckily, Captain Crunch is a blood relative of Theodora von Valancius, and is an heir to the current rogue trader. Kunrad says that Theodora wants to see me, so I journey deeper into the bowels of the Void ship, where we encounter a cutscene in the trophy room.
What's happening?
Things go downhill fast as the lobotomized cyborg slaves known as servitors go berserk and start killing a bunch of people with their metal crab claws. This drops me straight into the combat tutorial, where I quickly discover that I need a better gun, because it's a bad omen if I'm struggling to take down servitors. On the tabletop, these guys are the bargain bin cannon fodder. Fortunately, I was able to crit the last servitor and end the tutorial before embarrassing myself. Kunrad suspects that some foul play is at work and begins locking down passageways, but tells Captain Crunch to go on ahead to meet with the rogue trader. Wandering through the hollowed halls of the Quaker Oats, I finally stumble upon Theodora giving a lecture to some guy called Ethelthrad, who, notably, doesn't even have a portrait. And if you don't have a custom picture, it means you're not going to survive in an Owlcat game. From the walls of text, I learned that Ethelthrad is another heir to the rogue trader and is therefore a rival to Captain Crunch. Ethelthrad eventually scampers off, and Theodora becomes a career coach, telling Captain Crunch that he needs to prove his worth if he ever hopes to succeed her as a rogue trader. She also drops some fun trivia like how Kunrad is actually a blood relative and even used to be in the running to inherit the rogue trader title, but now he's been put out to pasture as a spy master. I don't think Theodora has ever watched Game of Thrones, but I feel like I know where this story is going.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
Anyways, we get ambushed by a bunch of armed heretics aboard the ship. Captain Crunch plays the role of moral support as I watch Abelard, the swordsman, and Mort, the flamethrower guy, mop the floor with them. After all is said and done, the gang finds Kunrad still alive, where he reports to Theodora that the mutineers are a lot more organized and widespread than first believed. Ethelthrad is also missing in action, and that's a problem because he's a psyker, which means that he might start summoning demons if he drinks too much warp-infused Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah, here comes Kool-Aid.
So Theodora makes the rather questionable choice of leaving Captain Crunch with Kunrad to go look for Ethelthrad by ourselves, and as expected, things take a turn for the worse again. Kunrad bonks Captain Crunch on the back of the head, knocking him out cold, and it is revealed that he is the mastermind behind the mutiny. Captain Crunch gets dragged to the warrant chamber, where he is rudely kicked awake, only to find Kunrad already in full villain mode, warming up for a monologue.
He has an important mission to complete during our visit to the warrant chamber.
Kunrad needs Captain Crunch's sugary blood in order to open the door that leads to a sacred document called the Warrant of Trade, which is proof of a rogue trader's authority. Kunrad once tried to open the door himself, but the sentinel door guard refused as his blood was tainted by the warp. He then whips out a magic blade and stabs Captain Crunch, but instead of killing the cereal man, it creates this artsy blue vignette effect across the screen. Say what you will about Kunrad, but at least he understands the importance of good visual presentation. Getting stabbed induces a form of brain fog over Captain Crunch, and our oat-flavored protagonist becomes a puppet on strings. Kunrad mind controls our hero to go towards the doorman's servitor to get our blood checked, but fortunately for us, Captain Crunch's high blood sugar causes the sentinel to ask if I needed any help. The answer is a resounding yes, and the defense protocol is initiated. Suddenly, the walls slide open, revealing gun turrets and flamethrowers that begin to eviscerate the heretics. Kunrad pops a potion of invisibility and runs away to fight another day. He probably should have waited a few more seconds because the gates of the chamber opened as he left, revealing the gigantic piece of paper that he so coveted. Captain Crunch now stands before the mighty Warrant of Trade, basking in the glory of its endless scroll of fancy letters and imperial jargon, all carefully written to make absolutely sure everyone knows that whoever holds this document is kind of a big deal. And right now, that big deal is a guy named after a cereal box. I try commanding the floating skull to restore communications, and it seems like Theodora is having a rough time with the mutiny. As cozy as the warrant chamber is, it is time for the real captain to take charge and steer the ship back on course. I leave behind the Warrant of Trade and lock the doors behind Captain Crunch, but then the Quaker Oats violently jolts, knocking Captain Crunch down, and mutineers arrive to exploit the situation. Things were looking dire, but then a mysterious chainsword wielding hero jumped in to save my breakfast. It was Abelard, the seneschal, who cleaved through the heretics and made it to Captain Crunch's side. I tell him that Kunrad is a traitor and that he's the one pulling the strings from the shadows. Abelard, now fully aware of just how desperate things have gotten, calmly informs Captain Crunch that the violent shaking of the ship isn't normal airplane turbulence. It's our navigator and master helmsman struggling to pop us out of the warp and back into real space. Without a navigator, we're all doomed because the warp isn't just hyperspace travel. It's home to demons whose main hobby is munching on souls like a delicious corn and oat cereal. Running through the crumbling halls of Quaker Oats, we encounter a spooky purple lady mumbling about prophecies. Apparently, it was her way of telling Captain Crunch to do a dodge roll to avoid getting crushed by falling debris. This weirdo is named Adira, who happens to be the personal psyker of Theodora, meaning she's good at witchcraft and will be joining the party because she has a portrait. We find the navigator melting into his fancy chair, still clinging to life, but looking kind of gnarly from all the warp mutations. The navigator chair amalgamation then tells us that he doesn't have much time left and we need to find the master helmsman before it is too late. Abelard then explains that the master helmsman is probably on the bridge of the ship and that we need to fight our way into the officer's desk. Dashing through the war-torn halls of the Quaker Oats, we find a squad of soldiers getting gunned down by a wave of heretics, but the tide turns in favor of the loyalists as a silver-haired lady strolls onto the battlefield without any cover and starts to shoot at the traitors, who stand there and allow themselves to be killed. There is no stronger force in the 41st Millennium than a named character, and this lady's name is Sister Argenta. She is essentially a nun who is good with guns and is another recruitable party member. One of the shaken survivors rushes up to Captain Crunch and reports that the crew is being butchered by the heretics, and the people that are not being massacred are too busy gouging out their own eyes, which is never a good sign for company morale. The master helmsman is definitely not here, so we continue our journey to the main hall by blowing up a door and getting on a suspended bridge. Our momentum comes to an abrupt halt as a pipeline suddenly bursts open, spewing fire and turning our passageway into an impromptu barbecue pit. But stepping out from the sizzling grill is a suspicious-looking Theodora, unburnt and unfazed by the flames. The magical rogue traitor then offers us some potentially ruinous powers to crush our foes with, and if there is one thing Captain Crunch knows, it's that a few grams of heresy really sweetens the taste of ultra-processed foods.
Yummy.
So I accept the free sample, and our party is swept away in a wave of purple and blue. We wake up in what appears to be a trophy room filled with useful items that only heretics can wield, and eventually discover a sliding wall that leads to a very fancy bedroom. As we bumble our way into the main chamber, trying to piece together where we are, we're greeted by a grim sight: Mort and Theodora's lifeless bodies. The rogue traitor is dead, and it seems to have been a quick kill judging by the lack of resistance. A single bullet from an auto pistol pierced Theodora's skull, with the rogue traitor only managing a surprised expression before flatlining. As Captain Crunch investigates, he discovers some evil glass shards that seem to hint at the former rogue traitor's shady dealings, and a letter from the secret police of the Imperium, known as the Inquisitors. After that, there's not much left to be done. We still need to track down the Master Helmsman if we want any hopes of escaping the warp. So, we leave the bodies where they lie and carry on our merry way. At last, our very loyal band of Imperium heroes bursts onto the bridge of the Void Ship, where we encounter the very heretical Kunrad performing a blasphemous ritual. We also meet up with a downtrodden Ethelthrad, who appears to be rather glum about the situation we find ourselves in. Abelard breaks the news to Ethelthrad that Theodora is a goner, and he immediately begins to spiral, whining about how the warp is too strong, how it's mutating his body like some kind of second puberty, and how the bad guys have already won. But after a taste of Captain Crunch's buttery encouragement, Ethelthrad suddenly finds the courage to stand tall and march straight into the jaws of hell. Kunrad's diabolical ritual is almost complete, and Captain Crunch decides to distract the traitor, accusing him of being Theodora's assassin, as a way of checking to see if he has any knowledge of said event, since I know how much Kunrad likes to run his mouth.
What? Theodora is dead.
But the Master of Whispers seems to be genuinely blindsided by the accusation, which is shocking, because lying is supposed to be his whole job. Either way, that reaction knocks him off my suspects list, but the opportunity for a surprise attack while Kunrad contemplates is quickly lost. Ethelthrad does his best orc impression and blindly charges at Kunrad, screaming about how he's not going to let the traitor complete his ritual. Ethelthrad very quickly makes a fool out of himself as Kunrad completes his ritual by stabbing the last human sacrifice, and the evil circle begins to emanate purple flames that sucks Ethelthrad into its center, turning his flesh into a blueberry hue. As Kunrad flees, a squad of armed cultists storm in to do battle with Captain Crunch's crew, backed up by the newly mutated Ethelthrad, who has become a chaos spawn. The writhing monster mash of tentacles and eyeballs turned out to be surprisingly resilient. Still, once I squared up for Mortal Kombat with the chaos spawn, I quickly realized its bark was a lot worse than its bite. After spending one turn making my ears bleed, it mostly just flailed around while Captain Crunch's crew delivered the smackdown Ethelthrad rightfully deserved. With the Chaos Spawn sent screeching back into the warp, we sweep the bridge for survivors, and the Emperor seems to smile upon us to stay, as Master Helmsman Ravor is still alive. With both Theodora and Ethelthrad out of the picture, Captain Crunch suddenly finds himself in command of the Quaker Oats.
That's what I've been waiting for! That's what it's all about! Woo!
Back when I played Pathfinder Kingmaker, it took me ages just to get a tiny castle up and running, so I should probably thank the Chaos Gods for fast-tracking me onto the throne as Rogue Traitor. Captain Crunch marches up the steps to the Lord Captain's chair, where he is then confronted by the spectral apparition of Theodora again, this time standing on top of the guardrails like an unruly teenager. She goes on a tangent about how Captain Crunch stole someone else's grand destiny and how my fate is sealed.
That's bad.
Captain Crunch is now indebted to spectral Theodora for the help that she gave us back at the open fire barbecue, and is expecting payback in the future. The sinister vision then flips through a slideshow of character portraits, each one rambling about the edge of dawn, the future, and all that heretical jazz, basically confirming that Captain Crunch's soul has just been signed over to the Dark God Tzeentch with no refunds. But I'm not really worried about this ever coming back to bite me, since debt is actually free money if you just default on your loans and sail away with your new yacht.
Oh my god! Wow!
I don't know why no one has ever figured out this simple financial hack. As this psychodrama was playing out in Captain Crunch's mind, we apparently made it out of the warp, but at the cost of the navigator's life. The helmsman turns to Abelard and asks about Theodora, and the seneschal doesn't sugarcoat it. She's got a hole in her head. And with Ethelthrad reduced to a pile of angry spaghetti, that leaves Captain Crunch as the only rightful inheritor of the Lord Captain's mantle.
By default, my favorite way to win!
There was even an option to act all bashful and refuse to become Rogue Traitor, but then the title of the game wouldn't make any sense, and so Captain Crunch solemnly accepts this hard-earned position.
The treachery of the Master of Whispers was fruitless, but victory came at a great cost. Lord Captain Theodora von Valencius perished along with her heir Ethelthrad, and thousands of crew members. Yet hope remained, for the second in line to the Rogue Trader dynasty survived, at the cost of many sacrifices made by the Lord Captain in the name of his own ambitions.
And that wraps up the prologue of Warhammer 40K Rogue Traitor. Captain Crunch has gone from cereal box mascot to interstellar explorer, inheriting a ship, a warrant, and a dark pact with ruinous powers. The God Emperor may not approve, but I hope YouTube's algorithm will. Thank you guys so much for watching. You may have noticed that this video is quite a bit shorter and has a much smaller scope than my previous episodes. This is kind of an experiment that I'm doing to see if you guys enjoy a shorter length but with more frequent and consistent uploads. The 40-minute videos constantly got delayed during production, so I feel like this is a more flexible way of doing things. Please let me know if this is something that you guys are interested in, and feel free to give me suggestions on what kind of videos or games you guys want to see in the future. As always, I hope to see you all next time, but until then, goodbye for now.